Hello and welcome to the EdTech podcast live from BETT. We're right here in the heart of the show today, talking, listening and sharing conversations with educators, innovators and leaders from across the global education and technology community. BETT is all about ideas, connections and the future of learning. And over these episodes, we'll bring you the voices that shape what's coming next. Okay, so we are coming to the end of recording on day 2 here live at BETT with the EdTech podcast. And I am beyond joyful that I have Andrew from Lego here with us. So hello, Andrew, welcome. And tell everybody, our listeners, what is happening in Lego.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure. So my name is Andrew Slawinski. I lead product development for Lego Education. So I have the greatest job in the world. So I lead design and engineering and most importantly, the educational impact of all of the learning products at the Lego group. Before coming to Lego, I had the second coolest job, which was I was the Lego research scientist at MIT.
My goodness.
So now I have the real coolest job.
Everyone's going to want to know how you got into those roles.
That's a different long story, but I am really excited to be here this week with the whole team. And we brought a bunch of folks from the design team and the engineers and the learning designers are all here. We're showing off our whole new portfolio from the last 2 years of really core classroom products. And we started last year with Lego Education Science, which brings supplemental science learning into the classroom. And that's been such a pleasure because it allows us to kind of go past a lot of the incredible legacy that we have of like really enthusiast teachers and enthusiast students learning in after school programs. And we're going like straight into the core classroom and really empowering. Like, did you ever have a teacher that did like the volcano or the egg drop, right? Yeah. And you probably remember those lessons for your entire life, right?
Absolutely.
And you remember those science experiences so strongly. And so the science product, the basic premise of it is, what if every teacher could be that superhero teacher every single week, right?
Yeah.
Rather than once a year or twice a year.
Because it's those experiences that matter. They're the ones that resonate and help us to remember, right?
Yeah. I mean, everything that we know, right? From decades and decades of education research and practices, like kids learn best when they're actively engaged in their learning. So my team is focused on how do we do that? How do we build those experiences and how do we support teachers to deliver them? And then last week, we announced a new product, Lego Education Computer Science and AI, which is our very first product that is also designed for bringing these incredibly powerful ideas behind computer science and robotics and artificial intelligence and bringing those into the classroom as well. And really trying to make sure that we're designing for all teachers and all kids in all classrooms. And, that has been an absolute joy to develop with the team and to test around the world with students and teachers. And really our focus, particularly on the AI side, is to get away from kind of chasing the current hype in the EdTech industry around AI, where everybody's just throwing conversational chatbots in front of children, which I can talk about how wildly irresponsible that is in some ways. But I think for me, I think it's so incredibly important that we introduce children to the fundamentals of artificial intelligence, right? It's not about, yes, it's important for children to learn how to safely and ethically and effectively use AI systems. I think it's just as important, if not more important, for them to develop a foundational understanding of how these systems work. And so what we've done in the product line is really all the way down to kindergarten is really start to expose children to these incredibly powerful ideas, right? Like probability and statistics and, machine representation, algorithmic bias, right? These should not be electives for a selective few kids. This should be for everybody.
Yeah, or just those children who have a really confident teacher in that specific area. Whereas actually one of the things that I've always found is that idea of building and even if it's just basic, like putting the bricks together for maths or building something as a stimulus or green screening with it and then creating something. The idea of Lego is actually a really secure place for teachers. So being able to build in, I assume that those harder concepts that we do, as you say, need to teach children in a way that keeps them safe, but also allows them to understand those fundamentals is vital.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now we do have legitimately challenges with access to tools, right? That is critically important. I think perhaps even more so, we have this gap in teacher confidence, right? Like when we go around and when we test the product, often the least confident person in the room to teach an AI or a CS lesson is the teacher. And so much of what we have to do when we design the products or we deploy the products is think about the design for the teacher. The team, it drives the team crazy because it's a very high bar, but everything that we do, it has to pass what's called the substitute teacher test.
Oh my goodness. Yes, great test.
It's the most important test, right?
Yeah.
Because a teacher, it's real life.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because it came out of a real experience. We were testing someplace in the US and, as happens, a teacher got sick.
Yeah.
And a substitute teacher came in and it was so funny. The team was like, well, I guess we'll cancel the test. I was like, we're not canceling this test.
Yeah. Which is what happens globally when
every single day.
I mean, as a teacher, when I was back in the classroom, I remember you would be ill and then you would be making your cover and then you would find out no one used it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I used to do math remediation and it was the same thing. It was like, I would get the flu and then I would come back and it was like, I had done all this nothing happened. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's the bar that we have to hit is if we want these things to enter the classroom in a successful way, we have to close that confidence divide and we need to be more conscious about designing tools that work for the students and for the teachers in this space.
Yeah.
You mentioned privacy, which I can rant about for quite a while.
I love that. What is Lego's stance?
So I think if we're going to bring these ideas into the classroom, we need to do so responsibly. And I think we need to have an anchoring in child safety and child well-being and child privacy at the core. And so I think there's a few values that we've established. My team calls them red lines. It's like the lines that we will not cross in order to guarantee the respect and the privacy and the safety and the well-being of children, right? And so, on the safety side, a lot of generative AI tools can be made safer, but they cannot be guaranteed to be safe. And until we can find a way to close that divide, Lego education will not bring them into classrooms. Another one is anthropomorphizing AI, right? Which is a really fancy way of saying like giving AI human-like characteristics, right? We never give AI a face or a name, or we don't describe an AI as creative. Creativity is for children, not for robots, right? Yeah. And if we don't do that, if we just if we're almost like allow those decisions to be made for us, right, by the industry that sort of, focuses a lot on the personification of technology, we know what happens, particularly to young children, right? They start to see these tools as having human-like intelligence. Yeah. And, even though the research is evolving in this space, we already know that has social and emotional and cognitive impacts, right? And I think the one that I worry about the most on that side, particularly younger children have started to see AI as magic. It's like I love to do this activity. Yeah, exactly. Like I love to do this activity with children where you ask them to draw how they think something works, right? Yeah. And then you do a lesson and then you ask them to draw it again. And something that I find when you do that with young children right now around AI is they like draw pictures of magic. But AI isn't magic. No. AI is technology. Yeah. Right. And what I like to say is, literacy shouldn't be about teaching children how to use a magic box. Yeah. It should be about handing children a screwdriver to take the magic box apart and make things with the pieces, right, that they find inside. And so I think for us, ensuring that no data ever leaves the classroom, that all of the AI happens locally, that no child information is transmitted over the internet, that we're thinking about usability and we're thinking about universal design for learning and we're thinking about model transparency. I think those values are really critical to us and we establish them up front rather than,
as an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Edmentum, a leading EdTech provider bringing global, future-ready learning to schools in more than 100 countries worldwide. I'm fortunate enough to have long-time familiarity with Edmentum, their commitment to keeping pace with the needs of today's students and then delivering innovative solutions that both accelerate academic achievement across K through 12 and enhance university and career readiness for all learners truly sets them apart. Backed by the highest caliber of research, Edmentum's AI-driven assessment, personalized curricula, and virtual instruction give the tools to prepare students for successful future. Visit edmentum.com to learn more about Edmentum's comprehensive solutions and how they can help you address your goals. Absolutely. And really interestingly, you talk a lot about children there, and obviously vital to Lego education, although there is a huge band of adults I know who also love a bit of Lego, myself included. But when we think about children, what are they saying? What is their feedback on your kind of new products with this sort of AI fundamentals range?
It's so much fun, right? So, when we start designing, before we build anything, we talk to kids, right? It's some of the funnest. It's like that's some of the best part of the product development process is talking with the kids and designing products with the kids. And we do a lot of co-design. And I think, what we find when we talk to children about AI is they're not just eager to use AI. They really are eager to understand how it works. And they're eager to build things. They're eager to connect it to their interests and their passions. Like they want to connect it to music and art and, to their community and their family and their friends and their pet dog, right? And so I think that's been a lot of the inspiration here is behind getting to that deeper level of understanding, right? To getting to the fundamentals that underlie all AI systems is really important, but just as important is then building actively with it, right? Like it's, don't have to tell you the best way to learn, right? To build.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I used to remove all the furniture from one of my classrooms. That I had this beautiful robotics lab, and it would turn into Mars, and we'd build the WeDo, and we would do crazy things. So I love the fact that the children have such a voice in this, though, because that is really vital. And I think we potentially are missing a lot. The conversations we've been having this week on the pod have been around this fear from adults around teaching children, but actually have we even spoken to the children about what they want to know and what they want to learn, or are we just assuming that they don't want to know? And then maybe the worst, that they're just going to use it for really bad things, whereas actually sounds like you're very invested in that conversation.
Yeah, if you talk to children, they want to know, and they want to connect it to their lives. And so we should give them the tools to understand and the tools to build. And so that's really where we've started, right? I like to say, never let the tail wag the dog. Never let the tech lead the learning. Never let the tech lead the child. I think we're in an industry that is very much obsessed with the tail wagging the dog. Like we've become so infatuated with what computers are capable of that we've completely forgotten what children are capable of. And we need to go back to first principles.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all this new fun AI kind of fundamentals section that you've been bringing out, you've obviously brought out some papers. There's a really amazing one that's very student-led, very child voice-centric. It's phenomenal. But you've also done some other work for educators in terms of kind of framing that. What does that look like in the classroom? So what can people expect from that?
Yeah, so we were really lucky to kind of bring together a bunch of students during the process, right? Like one of the things that happens when you work with kids is you end up with all of these incredible quotes. And so we were like, we have this gold mine of children's voices. Yeah. Let's share it. So the team was so wonderful about collecting and collating, all of this that had happened over really the course of almost 5 years of testing and development to do this, and put it together into this report. And you can find it on our website. What we also did, sort of the cherry on top of the sundae, as it were, was we actually went to a school in the United States, and we pulled together a group of kids, and they had this unscripted conversation about AI with this really amazing STEM teacher. And we filmed the whole thing. And I really encourage people to watch it because it is this completely unscripted sort of just snippet of the types of things that children care about and that they're concerned about and that they have ideas about. I think children, they have incredibly clear and articulate ideas about how AI should and shouldn't be used.
Yeah.
Not just in the classroom, but in life, right? Yeah. In society. And so I'm really happy that we were able to capture a little bit of that snippet of the product development process and share it with.
And I think it's really vital. I would definitely urge any educator who's interested in bringing it into the classroom, or in fact, actually just is curious about bringing AI into the classroom, to read it, because I think some of the insights in there and hearing it from student voice actually gives people a really great indication of what students are desiring to learn about it and actually puts it into perspective of reality of what we need to be doing. I think it's amazing. Forever amazed by the innovation that comes out of Lego. It's been really wonderful to speak to you today, Andrew. Thank you so much for being on the EdTech podcast here.
Thank you for having me.
That's it from us here at BETT. Thank you for joining this conversation and being part of the wider dialogue between education and technology. You'll find more BETT conversations and episodes wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll be back very soon with more stories from the show floor.